The Detroit Pistons suffer a heartbreaking loss to the Atlanta Hawks as Trae Young hits a game winner and then steps over Malik Beasley. We'll break down what went wrong in this game, why they lost, and also a few other positives concerning Ausar Thompson and Jalen Duren in today's episode, Locked On Pistons Podcast. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Ku Kahil. You can find me over on Twitter at Ku Kahil. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. We are just 400 subscribers away from 10,000. That's our goal by the end of this season. I need all of you guys' help to get there. Around 50% of you guys who watch and listen are not subscribed. So if you please want to find the best way to support the podcast, please head over, subscribe at Locked On Pistons, or you can also leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. There's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than our FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started today. I also want to let you guys know, again, we are going live every single Pistons game, watching the game together over on Playback. If you want to join us in the Playback room, we've had some really good audience. You guys have really showed up. It's been a lot of fun to watch the game together. If you want to join us in the next room for the next Pistons game, I'll link it down below. But without further ado, let's get into today's episode. The Pistons suffer a really tough loss to the Atlanta Hawks. We're going to break down that game. Then I want to talk about the flashes that Ausar Thompson and even Jalen Duren flashed within this game. And then it's something we've talked about over and over and over again, but has to be talked about again, the non-Cade minutes. We'll eventually get to that too. But, all right, let's break down the game against the Atlanta Hawks. The Pistons lost this one 132-130. Trae Young had a great game, 34 points, 9 assists, 9 of 16 from the floor. He was a problem all night for the Detroit Pistons. Cade ended up turning it up in the fourth quarter and making it somewhat of a good game. 30 points, 14 assists on 8 of 23 shooting. 1 of 6 from deep, though. The Pistons' defense in this game was absolutely horrible throughout the entire game. This is a game, and I know it was a back end of a back-to-back, but the previous night, the team had just talked about in the post-game presser about how they've realized they need to turn it up defensively. They didn't start the game on the right note defensively. They know that's not who they are defensively, and that's why they won the game previously. Then they come on in this game against Atlanta and play a horrible defensive game here. And I know, again, like I said, I know it's a back end of a back-to-back, but the defense that was played in this game is unacceptable. I don't care if it's a back end of a back-to-back 4 games, 6 nights. Can't play this bad defensively, and that's what really sunk the Pistons tonight. The Atlanta Hawks were on their way to scoring like 145 points after one half. The defense was just putrid, absolutely putrid. First quarter, they scored 34. The second quarter, they dropped 39. Just not going to win like that. Absolutely just not going to win like that. So that was the biggest reason why the Pistons lost. They couldn't get any stops. And when the Pistons didn't have Ausar Thompson on Trae Young, when Ausar Thompson was out the game, oftentimes you found, there's times you even saw Tobias trying to guard Trae Young. You saw THJ and Malik Beasley try to guard Trae Young. And that's not a recipe for success for the Pistons. What ended up happening a lot of times was Trae got them into foul trouble, got them into the bonus. The Hawks shot 39 free throws in this game. And a lot of it was because they were stuck in the bonus for a lot of the game because Trae was forcing a lot of fouls in this game. Now, the Pistons also shot 38 free throws in this game. The Hawks weren't interested in playing defense either. But the Pistons just didn't have an answer for Trae without Ausar on the floor. And oftentimes what ended up happening was they would run a pick and roll, Trae would get trapped, and Trae versus a trap is one of the scariest things in the league because of how great of a playmaker he is. He's able to pick apart a defense, able to get his team into 4-on-3 situations, and that was usually what happened throughout the entire night. So that was one of the biggest reasons why the Pistons ended up losing this game. The other reason was they need Cade to be better earlier into the game. This is one of those games where if you look at the stats afterwards, again, he had a really good fourth quarter, and the Pistons took the lead late in the fourth quarter. Like, they could have won this game. And a lot of it would have been due to Cade waking up and playing really well in the fourth quarter. He did. Absolutely. Turned it up when they needed him. He was a plus 10 in the fourth, 3 of 5 shooting in the fourth quarter, 12 points. Like, he played really well in that quarter. But the first 3 quarters and throughout the rest of the game, just look at the first half, he really struggled. First half, he was 3 of 11 from the field. He missed a lot of bunnies. He missed a lot of wide open threes in this game. He didn't play his best game. Absolutely didn't play his best game. And the Pistons are not going to win many games where Cade struggles for 3/4 of the game. It's just not going to happen. Third quarter, you went 2 of 7 as well. So what is that? You're looking at 5 of 18 through 3/4. You're just not going to win like that when you're constructed how the Pistons are and your star player struggles like this. Now, he was finding ways to create for others, and that's one of the good things about Cade is that even when he's having a bad shooting night, he's able to create for others and use his gravity to make, create offense for others, which they were able to do. I mean, they scored 130 points. But if Cade plays a better game, if he's more efficient throughout the first 3/4, Pistons might drop 140 in this game, and they easily win this game. Easily win this game. They need their star player to play better earlier in this game. He had a rough night. It happens. He didn't shoot the ball well from beyond the arc. He did draw 13 free throws, which was fantastic. I think that might be a career high for him. Again, a lot of that had to do with the fact that the Hawks were in the bonus for a lot of the game. So even on non-shooting attempts, he was getting fouled on reach-ins or whatever, and was able to get to the free throw line. Shot 13 of 13. By the way, this month, he's shooting much closer to the free throw percentage that we've seen throughout his career, shooting around 88% from the free throw line. So that's great. You love to see that. But yeah, I mean, their defense was horrible, and Cade wasn't good enough for the first 3/4, efficiency-wise and scoring-wise, for the Pistons to win this game. It's really allowed the Hawks to have this lead and have control of the game because Cade just wasn't feeling it within this game. Another reason they lost this game, I mean, we'll dive even further into it later, but the non-Cade minutes were just horrible again. I mean, it looked much like the game against Orlando early fourth quarter when the Pistons completely gave up the lead and fell way behind the first 2 minutes of the quarter. That happened again in this game. Look, the trade deadline's in a few days here. I think they absolutely have to address that, but I don't want to go too far into it because we're going to dive into it later. But, I mean, this was a game the Pistons could have won and got to the 6th seed again. Now they're back to 500. These are the type of games that they have to win. They have to pull out games like this because now they got Cleveland coming up at home. I don't think many people expect them to be able to beat Cleveland. So now you're probably looking at a 2-game losing streak here. You got to win these type of games. You can't lose these games. Lack of focus, defensively, your star player struggles, just the type of game you can't have. Just can't have this type of game. So it is what it is. Hopefully they can wipe it from their slate. Forget about it. Put it in the review mirror. Keep it going. I guess I will. I didn't know if I wanted to comment on this, but I will comment on it. The decisions by JB Bickerstaff at the end of this game, I thought were questionable. Especially, so I don't know if this was so much JB, but the last play where Trae Young hits that step back. Actually, I won't put it on JB. This is more the players definitely. Ausar started off on Trae, and they tried to set like 3 or 4 screens to get him off, and Ausar kept fighting over him, getting back to Trae. He did not want to switch. And eventually they did a screen with Malik Beasley's man, and Malik stayed. And if you watch the play, Ausar is very clearly yelling at him, get back. I want to get back to Trae. They want to just, reset the play. But Malik basically just stays and says, I got this matchup. Now, look, Trae did hit a tough shot. Okay, so Malik played fine defense. You don't switch there. You just don't. You keep Ausar on Trae. You do not allow Trae to go at Malik Beasley. You do not allow him to go at anyone else but Ausar Thompson. Especially if Ausar's not hit by a screen so badly to where he can't recover. He could have recovered easily. He was trying to tell Beasley, get back, I got it. And Beasley kind of just waved him off a little bit. Again, Beasley played fine defense, but I'm not even sure Trae gets that shot off if Ausar's guarding him. I don't know how he gets that shot over Ausar. It definitely would have been a way harder shot. And I kind of feel like that if Ausar was on him, Ausar would have rushed him into taking an earlier shot to where the Pistons would have had more time to try. Even if he did make a shot, they would have had more time to then go back and tie the games themselves. So that's a possession you just can't, you can't switch your best defender off for one of the worst defenders on the floor and not get back. Like, you just can't do that. It is what it is. And then you saw the outcome. The other thing that I put on JB is the last play for the Pistons. They basically ran a variation of the game winner they had against the Miami Heat where Jalen Duren fake screen and slipped and had that alley-oop dunk. Then Eric Spoelstra called that timeout. We all know how that happened. They called a variation of that, except it wasn't Jalen Duren. It was Tobias Harris who slipped. And I guess the motivation behind that was we don't have Duren on the floor. We have all shooters. Maybe we catch them off surprise. They're not going to see this coming. We'll get an easy layup. But if you're going to, it didn't go well. We saw how it looked. Tobias didn't even get a shot off. I don't think the pass was great from Cade. But also, Tobias is one of the least athletic players on the roster right now. And I don't know if drawing a lob up for Tobias is a recipe for success anyways. You draw that up for Ausar, Ron, Duren, you're feeling good. You're feeling good because it was open. You got the look you wanted, but drawing it up for Tobias, I just don't think was a recipe for success. I don't see how that one works. But that's all my takeaways from dissecting this game. They should have won this game. They could have won this game, but it wasn't so much as I didn't like the last play by the Pistons. They lost this game in the first 3 quarters. They did. The first 3 quarters of this game, they lost this game. They have to play better throughout a game. They can't, sleepwalk their way to the fourth quarter and then to try to turn it up and come back into the game. They lost this game through the first 3 quarters, and it is what it is. They're back to 500 with a game against Cleveland on Wednesday. So let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at KukaHill. What's your takeaways from this game? Why did the Pistons lose this game? Let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at KukaHill. When we come back, I want to really dive into Ausar Thompson, who I thought had a great game. And then also I want to talk about Jalen Duren having some moments within this game that are pretty impressive. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. What are some of your relationship green flags? We often hear about the red flags we should avoid, but what if we focus more on identifying the positive signs in our relationships, those green flags? If you're not sure what they look like, therapy can help you identify them. Actively practice them and even embody that green flag energy yourself. Whether you're dating, married, building a friendship, or just working on yourself, therapy can help you to form relationships that love you back. Therapy helps you develop healthy boundaries and improves your communication skills and empowers you to set clear expectations and express your needs in relationships. BetterHelp makes it easy by offering online therapy with over 30,000 licensed therapists to choose from. And if you need to switch therapists at any time, you can do so at no extra cost. Discover your relationship green flags with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month with BetterHelp. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. I'm going to ask again, please, we're 400 subscribers away from 10,000 subscribers. That's our goal by the end of this season. We can get there. Just need you guys to go over to the YouTube channel, Locked On Pistons, hit that subscribe button. We have 50% of you guys who listen and watch that don't subscribe. Please head over there if you haven't already. I really would appreciate it. Best way to support the podcast. Also, if you want to join us in the playback room and watch the Pistons game live with me and the rest of the Pistons fan base and the rest of the Locked On Pistons community, I'll link it down below. You just join the room. The game's on the screen. I'm on the screen with you guys. You guys can come up, talk with me, talk in the chat. We have a lot of fun. It's been really fun the last 3 games that we've done it. We'll be back Wednesday if you want to be in one of those rooms. I'll link it down below for you guys to join, and you guys will be notified when we go live with the games. All right, so while this was a tough loss for the Pistons for sure, and a heartbreaking way for it to happen, and the image of, Trae Young stepping over Malik and him tweeting it out and then putting it on Instagram and bad way to lose, okay? Obviously a bad way to lose. But it wasn't all bad in this game. It wasn't all bad. And the top positive, I would say, coming out of this game, we'll get to a few, but the top positive from this game, I would say, is Ausar Thompson, how he played. He played 25 minutes in this game, and the main takeaway for me, the main takeaway, and there's a few that we're going to get to, but the main takeaway for him is that this is one of the first games, probably the first game of the year, where I felt like that Ausar looked like he had 99 stamina again. Remember, I talked about this on a podcast a few days ago. Amen Thompson, I saw a stat, his brother is at the top of the league in miles traveled on the court this year, all right? I promise you, if we looked at that stat last year, Ausar would be somewhere towards the top in the games that he played. Because one of the main things that you loved about Ausar in Summer League, and you saw it in his rookie season, is that it looked like he never got tired. Just never got tired. And it's the same thing at OT. It just looked like he never got tired, which meant that he was all over the place all the time, whether it was on the glass, offensive or defensive, constantly in the passing lanes, constantly running in transition, constantly driving to the basket, constantly getting into offensive players' grill, forcing turnovers. That's one of the main things about Ausar and how he's able to fill his stat sheet is that he doesn't get tired. He's wreaks havoc everywhere because he never gets tired. But so far this year, and for good reason, he missed the whole offseason, dealt with blood clots since the beginning of last year, don't know how much he was able to even do conditioning-wise during this time at all. So one of the questions I asked in a previous episode was, are we even going to get to see that Ausar this year? Is that going to be an Ausar we have to wait till next year because of everything he dealt with? But this game in 25 minutes, I think was the first time we got to see him look like he had that 99 stamina rating again. And that's one of the biggest keys to success for him. If he doesn't have that, it limits the amount of impact he can have. That's one of his biggest, most positive traits for him on a basketball court. So I thought that was great to see. Hopefully that means he's rounding into shape. Hopefully we start to see him reach that 30-minute mark. Hopefully that's the case. But I love seeing that because that's going to mean big things for the Pistons if that is the case. That's one. Two, the Pistons started utilizing him a lot more in this game as a secondary ball handler, and this was the most aggressive I've seen him all year as a straight driver. We saw him get to the basket and draw 6 free throws. He shot 4 of 6 in this game. He was getting to the basket at will. He was constantly going up for shots. He was being extremely aggressive, not just in the half court, but in transition. That's the type of Ausar that you need. That's the type of Ausar that you need for the Pistons. We even saw him drive and dribble into a pull-up midi. He missed it, but that's the type of aggression you need from Ausar. You need him to be an aggressive scorer. Someone who gets the ball in his hands and is looking to get to the basket. That's what you need from him. You can't have him just passively sitting in the corner, passively setting screens, and then go screening into a wing 3, or not a wing 3 because he's not shooting the 3, but he kind of go screens into the wing and does empty spacing. That's not what you need from Ausar. What you need from him is the Pistons to trust him as a secondary ball handler, as a secondary creator, and live with the positives and negatives that come with it. He had 3 turnovers in this game. Yes, he's going to have ups and downs, but the positives that come from that will greatly outweigh the negatives. Greatly. The amount of shots that he created for the Pistons in early transition, from being able to just push the pace, get into the basket, and then kicking out for a 3 at the end of the fourth quarter. He chases. Trae Young throws a 4-court pass. I forget who it was. It might have been Dyson Daniels, but someone has a wide open layup, it looks like. Ausar chases him down, blocks it, get back into the play, calls for the ball, pushes the transition, gets all the way to the basket, then kicks it out to Cade for a wing 3, cuts the lead to 3, I believe it was. Like, that is the picture-perfect two-way sequence from Ausar Thompson if you allow him to utilize his playmaking and his processing and his anticipation as a playmaker. They need to allow him to do that. And I know maybe a lot of that has to do with the fact they don't trust him because of how many minutes he can play. I don't know. But if you're going to have him on the floor and the Pistons have this desperate need of another person to dribble the ball and create and get to the basket and be able to create for others, Ausar Thompson's standing right there. He's right there. And you saw it in this game against Atlanta when you get him to be aggressive as a scorer and you get him to be aggressive as a driver and you put the ball in his hands, he's able to make plays for others. And he did that within this game. He looked great defensively. He looked tremendous offensively. This is the type of Ausar that you need to see every single game. So as long as the Pistons don't make a trade for another ball handler, as long as they don't make a trade for another shot creator, they need to utilize the one that they have on their team, which is Ausar Thompson. Put the ball in his hands, let him create, let him push in transition, let him create for others, let him get to the basket, let him play make, tell him to be aggressive as a scorer, and you will live with the results. The results will greatly outweigh the negatives. They will. 3 turnovers tonight, you have 4 assists, plus 2 on the game. 3 steals, 4 rebounds, 13 points, 4 of 6 from the field, 5 of 6 to the free throw line. You'll take that. You will take that. And it will only get better as if he plays 30 minutes a night, you're looking at the box score looks way better if he's playing 30 minutes. You can't just look at the box score because his minutes are being depreciated. This was a really good game from Ausar, and I hope that JB will start utilizing him like this more moving forward, that you start to see more of a ball-handling Ausar, because the Pistons need it, and that's the only way Ausar reaches his ceiling. You don't draft him 5th to just play defense and do nothing else. That's not what you do. He was a ball handler at OTE. You draft him because you believe in that. You're seeing these flashes. You need to invest in it. The other player I want to talk about is Jalen Duren. Now look, I'm not saying he's perfect defensively. I'm not saying that. But he's been damn good offensively the last 9 to 10 games. The chemistry with Cade is off the charts. He's been great offensively, fantastic offensively, and really showcasing his entire repertoire offensively that makes you want to wait for him defensively. But I'm not going to talk about offense right now. I'm going to talk about defense. Obviously, the team defense, everyone played horrible defense for the first 3 quarters. It was horrible. They played terrible defense, everyone, including himself. But in that 4th quarter, when the Pistons were making their run, at the end of this quarter, Jalen Duren had multiple reps defensively that had me in that playback room. You see my reaction. I'm losing my mind saying, great bleep, Jalen. Great stuff, JD. That was a fantastic rep. There was one play, well, I'll break the 2 plays that instantly come to my mind that stick out. First play, just a simple block at the rim. He rotates, blocks a dunk at the rim, Pistons get out in transition, and they're able to score. That's simple. Rim protection, that's perfect. That's simple. There's another play that was absolutely just what you want to see from him. Trae Young runs a pick and roll running to his left, okay? What they've been doing with Jalen Duren more, and we did this in a film breakdown on my personal YouTube channel at Kuka Hill, what the Pistons have been doing, they've been a little bit more aggressive in the pick and roll. Not just staying in traditional drop. They've been at the level. They've been randomly blitzing, playing a little more aggressive at the level, having Duren try to use his hands and get active in the pick and roll, trapping. They've been trying to be more aggressive. And in this play, as soon as Trae wraps around to the left off the pick and roll, Duren comes up. He doesn't completely trap, but he comes up, uses his hands, shows at the level, gets really aggressive, forces Trae to take one hesitation dribble. Now, Okongwu is rolling. Okongwu's rolling. In this situation, you're usually terrified of Trae. Terrified, because he can rip you apart in this. Duren had maybe his best rep of the year. Showing, making Trae hesitate, making him pick up his dribble, and then rotating, recovering, and getting back and taking away Okongwu. Ends up, I don't know if that play ended up in a block for him, but it ended up in a turnover for the Atlanta Hawks, and it's all because he was able to get up in the pick and roll, show, make him pick up his dribble, rotate, get back, recover, take away the roll, close off their offense. Pistons able to get out in transition. 2 incredible reps from Jalen Duren in pick and roll defense in that 4th quarter, and those are the type of reps that you see from Duren that you say, if he could just get that down consistently, if you can just get that down consistently, not just for 2 plays in the 4th, but for an entire game, if you can just get that down, show, use your hands, and then recover at the right depth, get deep enough, and take away the roll. If you can do that consistently with what you bring offensively, like, the sky's the limit for you. The sky's the limit for him. It's not consistent right now, but over the last few games, and especially ever since JB started to be more aggressive in the pick and roll coverage and have him higher up and not just in a straight up drop coverage, you've seen these flashes more often. You're starting to see the flashes happen more often. And look, I've been very vocal about JD's defense this year. I've been very critical, and I think it's been fair. I was very high on him in the offseason because of his offense, and thought if he could just get it together somewhat defensively, he could be really good. So I've been very critical of him defensively this year. Over the last month, you're seeing more flashes. Not consistently good yet. Let's not get out of pocket, but you are starting to see those flashes, especially with how he's playing offensively, combined with the flashes defensively that make you say there's something in there. There's something in there that you can tap into. You can tap into this. You just need to get it out of him consistently. So, thought this was a great game from Ausar. And those 2 plays, those few plays in that 4th quarter from Jalen Duren on defense, I thought were absolutely tremendous from him. Absolutely tremendous. So let me know in the comment section down below how you guys feel about Ausar Thompson and Jalen Duren after last night's game against the Atlanta Hawks. Again, comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. When we come back, the common complaint, the common criticism, the non-Cade minutes. We'll talk about it. Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's the icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, the official partner of Super Bowl 59. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. Another great way to support the podcast. Told you guys many times already, please hit that subscribe button. We're on our way to 10,000 subscribers. You want to join us in the playback room? It's been a lot of fun having everybody in there. Come watch the game with your fellow Piston fans, fellow Locked On Piston listeners, community. It's been fun talking with you guys and watching the game with you. All right. So you know how at the beginning of this podcast I said to you guys, the Pistons lost this game in the first 3 quarters. And I said that, Cade has to be much better through the first 3 quarters. And that the team needs to be better defensively in the first 3 quarters. We talked about that. And that all is true. All of that is true. What also is true is despite that, the Pistons won Cade's minutes by 10 points. The Pistons won Jalen Duren's minutes by 7. They won Tobias's minutes by 12. They won Ausar's minutes by 2. And they won THJ's minutes by 13. So the starting lineup won their minutes. And all of what I said at the beginning of this game was true. Or beginning of this podcast is true. The starters did not come out with the right urgency defensively to start this game. They did not play well enough throughout the totality of this game. Despite that, they still won their minutes. They did. They still won their minutes. And in 38 Cade minutes, you won those minutes by 10. There's 48 minutes in the game. In 38 of them, Cade played, you won those minutes by 10. Despite his poor shooting night, which he ended up not completely recovering it, but made it much better because he got to the free throw line so many times. Ended up getting 30 points and 23 shots, which it's not great efficiency, but he saves it a little bit. Like, he made the most out of it, which is why drawing free throws is so important. But anyways, they still won their minutes. So how did they lose? Well, and again, not picking on any one player, but just listen. In Ron Holland's minutes, they got outscored by 13. Marcus Sasser's minutes, got outscored by 12. Simone Fontecchio's minutes, they got outscored by 11. Isaiah Stewart's minutes, got outscored by 9. Malik Beasley's minutes, they got outscored by 9. Now, Malik Beasley had 18 points on 6 of 11 shooting, 6 of 10 from deep. Was it because he played bad? No. Isaiah Stewart, 4 of 6 in this game, 10 points, the usual Stu stuff. Is it because Stu looked bad in this game? I wouldn't say so. Ron Holland, 2 of 3 in this game, 1 of 2 from deep. Was getting into it with the Hawks. His usual dog self. Do I think he played his best game? No. But do I think he was horrible? No. So why did they lose their minutes? Because they have no creation when they all come onto the floor. They have no creation. They just don't. And I know that we talk about this all the time, but I will continue to talk about this damn near every episode until the Pistons address this. You will not be taken serious as a good team until they address this issue. I'm sorry. I know it sounds like I continue to pile on Marcus Sasser, but the longer they continue to put Sasser in this position, I have to talk about it. The Sasser point guard minutes are not working. We all know they're not working. We all knew they wouldn't work before the year because they didn't work last year. And we knew it wasn't going to work last year because it didn't work in the Summer League before last year. And we knew it wasn't going to work this year because it didn't even work in the Summer League last year, this year, or previous season. Like, it's never worked. It's not going to work. And the longer that you continue to try to put this on Sasser, it's going to continue to look bad. Sasser in 9 minutes of play had 2 turnovers. And look, he's just not a point guard. And this is what makes it worse, is that you have him playing point guard with the bench unit in a bench unit that doesn't have another shot creator. It's not like he's a point guard and he's just setting the offense up and then just setting the table up for another guy that's a wing or something that creates advantages for others. They don't have anyone that comes off the bench when they play their bench lineup, and when they play without Cade. The only other player that can create advantages is Ausar. The only person that can create advantages and make out of those advantages for others is Ausar Thompson. But he's one, I wouldn't say he's consistent at it yet. You still get those turnovers. And two, they just don't do it. Outside this game against the Hawks, they just don't do it enough. And three, Ausar's on a minutes restriction. So it's going to be hard to stagger him with the starters and the bench. And you need him in the starters because you need him to guard guys like Trae. So it's going to be hard to stagger him with the starters and the bench while he's on a minutes restriction. So you need this shot creation. You need someone else on the team that can create advantages, force the defense to get into rotation so you can then create and generate good shots. You watch all of the Pistons shots that they generate without Cade on the floor. Unless they're getting a stop and running in fast break or in transition, if it's half-court offense, it is completely reliant on Malik Beasley going towards earth from three, and Sasser hitting step-back threes, and Simone hitting contested threes. That's all it's relied on. That's all it is. It's DHOs into pull-up threes, DHOs into contested three, DHOs into pull-up contested twos, DHO into a long contested two. Like that, they can't touch the paint. They can't touch the paint, and when they do, the guys who are touching the paint are either a big man who's getting an offensive rebound, or a guy getting to the paint and forcing up a bad shot because one, they didn't really create an advantage, and two, they're not good enough playmakers or processors to play make out of a paint touch. That's all it is. And God forbid, they don't even get paint touches really for that second scenario to even pop up enough. They just don't generate paint touches. It's a problem. It's a problem. And look, we don't know what the Pistons are going to do yet. We don't know what they're going to do yet. I haven't heard anything, or I'll tell you guys. But we don't know if they're going to go the route of just taking on a bad contract to get a pick, or if they're actually going to try to get someone to solve this issue. All I'm going to tell you guys is as long as they don't solve this issue, and it continues to be their Achilles heel every single game, I will come on here and I will talk about it. Because this team has enough tools to be a really good, maybe so a really good team, maybe a top 6 seed. They have the tools to be that. Cade has been good enough for that. You're seeing improvements from enough guys to be that. You're getting enough shooting from guys to be that. The Achilles heel, the defense has improved to a point where you can be that. The Achilles heel that is just completely holding this team back is the fact they have no other shot creation on this team and no one else that can generate paint touches and create for others out of it outside of Cade Cunningham and of Ausar Thompson that doesn't really get used that way. That doesn't get used enough that way. So until they address it, I'll continue to talk about it. And the last thing I'll say is this on this topic. Look, if I get a comment or a DM or a tweet that says, why do you do this if you have Jaden Ivey? Jaden Ivey being on this team should not stop you from wanting to be a better team. And no one, and add on to that, no one is saying to trade Ivey. You can go get somebody that also, I don't understand why people think, there's some people that think that having guys that can create with the ball in your hands is bad. You only need one of those guys. If you have 2 or more, it's bad. There's only one ball. That's just not the case. Having guys that can do stuff with the ball in their hands is good. You acquire another person, that doesn't mean Jaden Ivey, that must mean they don't like Jaden Ivey's future. That doesn't mean that at all. It just means you need more of it. And when Jaden Ivey comes back next year, guess what? Now you got Cade, Jaden Ivey, hopefully Ausar, and if this dude that you acquire at the deadline is helpful and has a 2-year contract or more, the way he's not expiring, then you have that too. Like, Jaden Ivey on the team should not stop you from wanting to get better and solve an issue. And it also doesn't mean that they've given up on Ivey or Ivey has no role. I don't understand this. But it's an issue that needs to be solved. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe on the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. Join us in the playback rooms. I'll link it down below in the bio. Join us. It'll be a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it so far. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there. Till next time, peace out, everybody.